Hello YouTube, this is Obama Maniac, though I won't be known as that for much longer. More on that later. This election is increasingly reminding me of one of my favorite episodes of South Park. In that episode, the mascot of South Park Elementary School, Mooey the Cow, was retired because he pissed off PETA. So they had an election to decide who would replace Mooey, and the last candidates standing were Giant Douche and a Turd Sandwich. When that episode was aired, the Giant Douche running was John Kerry, and the Turd Sandwich was George Bush. Today, the Giant Douche is Barack Obama, and the Turd Sandwich is John McCain. Now, I'm not going to vote for either the Douche or the Turd, because I'm sick and tired of turning myself into a political prostitute by voting for the lesser evil. When I go to the polls, I'll write in none of the above, and urge every American who doesn't like any of the candidates to do the same thing. Why don't I like the Douche or the Turd? I'll tell you why, first starting with the Turd Sandwich, John McCain. I believe I speak for millions of people who once believed in John McCain when I ask, what the hell happened to the straight-talking, independent-minded maverick from the 2000 campaign? The McCain that stood up to the special interests and lobbyists by combating wasteful pork barrel spending projects, such as the Bridge to Nowhere, and teaming up with Russ Feingold to enact some of the most significant political reforms since Watergate. The McCain that has resisted political extremes, even if it meant going against his own party. Whatever happened to that McCain it is clear, unfortunately, for this country that he is long dead, and it is undoubtful that he will return. Since the old John McCain lost his Republican primary bid in 2000 and made a famous speech denouncing figures on the left like Jesse Jackson and Louis Farrakhan, as well as figures on the right like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, as agents of intolerance, and the resulting political blowback he's received from the base of his party, that John McCain was slowly becoming the political version of the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The first sign of this macabre political transformation began after the first few rounds of Bush's tax cuts for the wealthy. John McCain voted against those first few rounds and didn't shut up about it. This remark said on May 21st, 2001, best sums it up. I'm disappointed that the Senate Finance Committee preferred instead to cut the top tax rate of 39.6% to 36%, thereby granting generous tax relief to the wealthiest individuals of our country at the expense of lower and middle income Americans. In response to his moral concerns, McCain, also expressed there were also concerns about fiscal irresponsibility. When asked the following question by Tim Brisson on Meet the Press on March 30th, 2003, do you believe that the president, because of the war, should be asking Americans for more sacrifice and should hold off on any future tax cuts until we have a sense of the war and the state of our economy? McCain responded by saying, yes, I do. I do believe that until we find out the cost of this war and the reconstruction that we should hold off on tax cuts. Unfortunately, due to the fear of the wrath of his base, he changed his tune and voted to extend the same tax cuts he said were morally and fiscally irresponsible. When Rush had brought up this inconsistency on a future interview, McCain said, I voted to extend them because they would have the effect of having a tax increase, and I also have a proposal at the time that we need to restrain the spending. The tax cuts have increased revenues enormously, which is total BS. McCain's flip-flopping on taxes did not end there, though. In addition to now being for Bush's tax cuts before being against them, McCain is now in favor of additional tax cuts, including eliminating the alternative minimum tax, which was enacted in 1970 and expanded by Ronald Reagan, of all people, in 1986, which was designed to close the numerous tax loopholes that existed for many higher-income households at the time. And, of course, the dreaded estate tax. Ooh! Which John McCain originally supported, even well into June 8, 2006, where McCain said on the Senate floor, quote, most great civilized countries have an income tax and an inheritance tax. In my judgment, both should be part of our system of federal taxation. Of course, he bought into the death tax logic by saying, as soon as the following Tuesday, the estate tax is one of the most unfair tax laws on the books. McCain also supported the gas tax holiday, which was such a bad idea that even the Bush administration, yes, the Bush administration, the same Bush administration that appointed the former head of the Arabian Horse Association as the head of FEMA. But that didn't stop Hillary Clinton from also hopping on that political gravy train. I know she's out of the race, but I couldn't resist. The so-called gas tax holiday it passed would have temporarily phased out the gas tax, which would have decimated an important source of revenue, but at least would have saved the average taxpayer a whopping $30, which isn't even enough to fill a tank of gas, and will soon probably not even be enough to fill half of a tank. While McCain technically didn't flip-flop in this case, I doubt the old McCain would have supported such a glorified Ponzi scheme. McCain even flip-flopped on what has been the heart and soul of his economic policies, balancing the budget. At a February 15th campaign rally, McCain promised to balance the budget by the end of his first term. But then he eventually slided the goalpost to the end of his second term, and then eventually got rid of it completely. Even putting aside the fact that McCain's stated economic policies during the campaign would do anything but balance the budget, the fact is a promise is still a promise, and a flip-flop is still a flip-flop. Of course, McCain hasn't just flip-flopped on the economy, though. He has flip-flopped at least once on just about every issue. In a single sentence alone, he could flip more than a short stack of pancakes at IHOP. When the host of Hardball, Chris Matthews, asked McCain what he thought of gay marriage, for example, McCain said, "I think that gay marriage should be allowed. If there's a ceremony kind of deal, if you want to call it that, I don't have any problem with that." 11 minutes later, though, he apparently did, by saying, quote, "I believe that if people want to have private ceremonies, that is fine. I do not believe that gay marriages should be legal." Of course, that is just the beginning, folks. On Social Security, McCain supported Bush's plan to privatize Social Security, saying on November 18, 2004, "Without privatization, I don't see how you can possibly over time make sure that young Americans are able to receive Social Security benefits." When later asked about his stance, McCain lied about his record and said, "I'm not for privatizing Social Security. I've never been, I never will be." I know this is abrupt, but YouTube has a strict time limit for videos of no more than 10 minutes. So the rest of this will have to be said in part 2.